We're joined now by the host of The Hill on NewsNation, Blake Burman, who also happens to be our chief Washington correspondent. Jonathan Kott is here, the Democratic strategist, and so is Bradley Devlin, is the politics editor for the Daily Signal. Blake, right before, just as I was cutting to Secretary Noem, we noticed that there was a new tweet on the press secretary's account talking specifically about Medicaid. This is from Caroline Levitt.
Yeah.
The White House is aware of the Medicaid website's portal outage. We have confirmed no payments have been affected. They're still being processed and sent. We expect the portal to be back online shortly, because I'd mentioned that she hadn't really given a straight answer when asked about Medicaid, if this was going to be connected to this freeze. And we're getting all these reports from various people. Oh, the portal's down, the portal's down. There's your answer. So there's been a lot of confusion today.
We normally don't talk about the Office of Management and Budget, Connell, in a brand new administration until about March or April, right? When they put the first ever budget out, and you sort of pick through that and say, well, why are they pulling money from here and adding money from there? They don't even have the head in, Russ Vought, who was the head of OMB in the first Trump administration. He still has to go through the confirmation process to get his old job back, and that is taking place here in Washington as well. But this, of course, coming front and center today with the White House saying, hey, look, these are certain executive orders that the president has signed. We want to make sure that because the president has signed these executive orders, that the funding as it relates to them doesn't go out the door. You have a lot of pushback here in Washington today saying, wait a minute, what about this and that? For example, Medicaid. And you have this now sort of back and forth in week one, or the start of week two, I guess, of the Trump administration. They say, look, we got to be good stewards of what we want. Questions about what is or isn't being paused. And that's sort of where we are right now, with also questions, Connell, about whether or not the White House can do this. Keep in mind, Congress has the power of the purse.
And in lawsuits already from one nonprofit, there could be more to come. I would say, Jonathan, so far early in the Trump administration, I was wondering, when would Democrats really speak out aggressively? When would be an issue and say, all right, we're going to go back, we're going to fight back against Trump? And this looked this morning like the issue. Any of these kind of clarifications, or whatever term you want to use, from the press secretary, kind of simmering any of that, or you think Democrats are still fired up about what might happen?
No, Democrats are fired up. Last night, Donald Trump decided that he was going to take money away from mothers who just had a baby and need to buy formula, Meals on Wheels for seniors, COP grants, kids who go to school and need lunches, poor people who need Section 8 housing. That's what he decided was important in this country. So he took money away from them and he froze those programs. So Democrats are going to fight him tooth and nail on that. It's also, they believe, illegal for him to do it. So they'll fight him in court, they'll fight him in Congress, and Republicans in Congress will have to say they're completely okay with it. And the irony of it is the states that benefit most from the programs that he's freezing and cutting are all red states. They are all states that voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, not even by a close margin. These are states that voted for him by 20%. They all have two Republican senators and an overwhelmingly Republican House majority. So they're going to have to go home to their constituents and say, yeah, we're completely fine with you cutting all of these programs.
Would that, and again, there's still a debate about what's in, what's out, but would that, Bradley, create some potential problems for the president, or, to Jonathan's point, some of these congressional Republicans in their home districts here? I mean, we're focusing on the Democrats' reaction, but will it create issues for Republicans?
It might, but let's keep in mind the mentality of the Republican voter is way more on government efficiency and kind of the meta-narrative that they feel like government has gotten away from them, the American people, that government is no longer in their hands. And so they see the Trump administration acting vigorously through an executive order like this to try and say, hey, let's get a handle on all the money that we're spending and make sure that we're not wasting it on frivolous programs. And that way, when we review it, we can actually give more money to those people who need it most in the areas that need it most. And so I think that's what the American people in those areas are going to be hearing from this. They understand that it's going to be a pause, it's not going to be indefinite, and that it's actually talking about the policies impacted by the executive orders. I think the clarification was necessary and good from the White House press secretary, but I think that's what they're more focused on, is getting the government to reflect their priorities.
Thanks so much for watching. Just go to joinnn.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.